call the commission meeting to order. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Western Commissioner Johnny Williams.
Present.
Eastern Commissioner Bradley Jackson.
Present.
Presiding Commissioner Lynn Morris.
Present. Will you all join me with the pledge? Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all very much. All right. Today, we need to approve today's agenda. We do have some minutes and one financial that we're going to approve. The financial is a certified court order 08-19-2025-1. We do have a couple minutes, August 11th, 2025 regular session, August 14th regular session. And the other items for consideration, we do have a work study that's starting right now on juvenile, and then 9 o'clock we'll have a commission meeting, and at 10 o'clock we'll have a work study concerning conditional use permits, planning, zoning, and then we'll have some communications at the end. I need a motion to approve the consent agenda as stated.
So moved. Second.
Okay, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, so we are ready to start the work study for juvenile. Normally, if you've not been at one of our work studies before, we usually are not making decisions at the work study. We're taking all the information again and listening and working together, and then we'll make a quick decision unless the group decides to change the format. That's really what work studies are about. But we do know we have time limits and we have to make decisions. So in a way, and Judge, I'm going to kind of maybe start with you. I don't think this is going to take too long, but maybe if you could just sum up what you see in your court, because you're over juvenile, what you see, because we're dealing with Mr. Perry and a great leader. We don't have a problem with leadership at all, and then we have a great attorney that we're transitioning, and so we don't really have a problem with that either. But I guess what I would just tell you real quickly is, and I'm still fairly new at this. I mean, I guess I should know by now, but I've been here since 20. But when I sat here, I was different than out there, or a state rep, or even Eastern Commissioner. What we see here is every department, every elected official, they're all important. You can't do without one elected official. They're all essential. And everybody has their budget. Everybody has their budget. And unfortunately, our budget is just continually every year. I think Miss Amy will tell you, our auditor, from 2012 to present, so that's 13 years, our budget is not going down like that. It's just going down, okay? Because sales taxes are number one money source for our budget. Sales tax is, and because that we good morning, because that we have more people buying online, and will continue. It's never going to stop. Online purchasing is here to stay. Brick and mortar stores are going to be hurting, and I mean that hurts our budget. And then some people just choose to buy somewhere else, and they don't buy local. That's extremely important too. So when we make transitions from a state employee to a county employee, that shifts, that transitions our liability, it transitions the money that we have to spend, and so we as good stewards need to be careful about our budget, because the money can run out. I mean, we got 98,000 people watching us every day trying to figure out how we're spending our money.
Now, we are shifting that into a position that already exists.
Well, it does.
We would increase the pay of that position, and that increase is covered almost completely by grant money. But so that does not, none of this is creating a new position. You know, we're moving around positions that already exist. And I don't mean to interrupt you,
No,
but I just wanted to...
and I do appreciate the grant. Ms. Tui gets grants, everybody. If we didn't, and I'm glad we have this on YouTube, if we didn't get grants, if our elected officials and department heads did not get grants, we would not be able to provide the services that we provide. People don't even realize how important these grants are.
And frankly, you know, and this is a whole different topic, but with the opiate money, one possibility is to employ a grant writer, you know, because that's a position who searches out grants that deal with treatment, law enforcement, substance abuse, because that then you hope generates even more income for the county. But that is not on our agenda today.
No, I think that's a good idea. Back in 2020, I said we need a grant writer, a professional grant writer that takes care of everybody, that they'd be worth their weight in gold. And I believe that, so that's not a problem. I think also when we get to the attorney, Ms. Ballou, that's been under Ms. Tui, I think from the county perspective, and maybe even from the chief's juvenile officer manager, I think it's a unique experience, because Perry is so experienced. You know, Mr. Perry is so experienced that you don't have every day you have someone that with all that experience. So that's good, and you work well together. So that's a perfect scenario in that case. But if we were going to be hiring a chief juvenile officer from on the county payroll, we probably wouldn't be starting out at the salary that he's made. We're bringing him from one salary to another salary, and
I think it's just, what does it take to get a qualified person to fill that position? And I don't know that you could get somebody for less than what we would be paying Perry.
And it very well could be.
It's hard to know until you try, but hiring has been very difficult for all of us over these last few years. A lot of that is salary related, and so if I'm doing a statewide search for a qualified juvenile officer, I anticipate that, you know, I mean, there's going to have, I'm not going to pay them, you know, $500,000, but there's going to have to be a salary. You'll be the chief.
$500,000, I'm in, whatever you need.
But there has to be a salary that is, you know, that will bring those people to the table. So.
And I guess, you know, one of the considerations that the county would have is when we make these changes, whatever changes we make has a consequence for now on. So it is something that we're setting a precedent for that's always going to continue. And I don't know whether we could get somebody for $89,000, $95,000. You know, I don't know. If you start getting
well, that's not what we're not proposing. That
I think he's talking about the attorney. You talking about the attorney position?
Yeah, I'm flipping back now to the attorney thing. But I mean, both. And then also, I think from the county perspective, many times they're going to look for a 1099 type of employee.
There's no such thing as a 1099 employee.
Pardon?
You know, you're either an employee or you're a 1099 contractor.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And you cannot call an employee a 1099 contractor and think that that's going to fool the Department of Labor or the IRS. You know, I mean, in fact, it's against the law to take an employee and try to avoid your legal responsibilities by calling them a 1099 contractor. If issues arise later regarding the status of that person, the government looks beyond the title and looks to the substance of their employment. And if they decide that they actually functioned as an employee, they will be treated as an employee. So the government does not allow employers to avoid their responsibilities just by classifying people conveniently as 1099 contractors.
Right.
So.
Okay, yeah, I probably misspoke a little bit.
Well, no, I think, but I hear you,
just,
I hear the county talk about, let's just make him a 1099, let's make him a 1099, and there's no such thing as making them a 1099. They're either an employee who is who follows the rules and policies of the county, whose schedule is set, whose job duties are set, or they're a contractor. We can't just pick and choose. You look at the position, and the position tells you what their status is. For instance, it works for me to hire an attorney to do our status and delinquency cases as a contract because I don't tell him anything. He has a contract. He knows his responsibility is to represent those kids in those cases. I leave that completely to his discretion. If Perry feels like he's not doing a good job at that, he'll tell me and we may contract with someone else. But I leave that completely at his discretion. And so I think he is truly a contract employee. If you take Jeanette Ballou's position, where she's full-time, she has certain duties she has to perform, she has certain times she has to be there, she has certain policies she has to follow. She's an employee. You can call her a 1099 and you will lose that issue. So she's an employee. Doesn't matter what we want to call her.
Okay.
So we toss that around a lot, and I don't know that people understand what that really means.
Yeah. All right. And I think also, one of the things that is probably that I feel like, and I've heard from our county, several people in our county that's in this room today, is that we probably, if we're gonna go with this arrangement, we probably need an MOU, and we've talked about that a little bit. And what does an MOU look like? And I'm certainly not a legal expert, so I've only had Law 1 and Law 2, so I'm not like you all. But I think the county, and I would hope that you wouldn't not want to do this, that help work with us and work with Mr. Mark, our county attorney now, and still Mr. Austin for a while, and we develop an MOU that protects our employees, protects the court, protects the county, that is a benefit to everyone, and gives us clear understanding of responsibilities and who's doing what. Do you feel
I understand that you all have talked about a memorandum of understanding, and of course, I mean, we have operated generally within this framework for over 30 years now, but so I think I would have to just be guided by what you want in the memorandum of understanding. I'm still not clear really on what the confusion is or what the issues are, but I'm certainly willing to take a look at whatever you want to have your council draft. Maybe you can provide guidance to your attorney about what you want to have covered. I just don't really understand what the issues are that would be covered by a memorandum of understanding. But, you know, I mean, I never say never. And I'm always open to communication, and I try to always work cooperatively with all of the other county office holders, and certainly with the commission. You know, so if you want to meet with your attorney and talk about the concerns that you have, and I think I would have to see a document, you know,
Sure.
to get an idea of what we're trying to accomplish and what it needs to say.
Well, in an ideal world, we would have it, we would probably, we're the ones that's initiating, but certainly you're going to look at it. It's going to be a working document that you might have some ideas, suggestions, and in the end, what I would like is something that would be beneficial to the court and beneficial to the county. Because yes, we've been doing this for about 30 years. However, this is the very first time that we've had a state employee go down as a county employee. And I understand exactly what Mr. Perry's doing with, you know, retiring from the state and going to the county. But there might be some people out there somewhere in this county that has some questions about that and changing benefits and doing the things that we're doing. And so, you know, everything, in my opinion, is overweighted because of the vast experience that he's got. Okay, we're not having to hire someone outside, and we got Kane that's going to be next, I hope, in line. I hope you guys are mentoring.
Right, and he is well qualified and certainly would be, you know, high on the list of applicants
to take his place and stuff like that. Because I've seen some offices that, you know, they don't get a lot of good training. They're elected officials. They're new elected officials, but sometimes they don't get all the mentoring and training that they need, and so they really are struggling to begin with. And so, you know, you may be still not retiring for several years. Hope you're not retiring for several years, but still, you need to always be mentoring who you think might be a good replacement and stuff like that. But if you're open to doing the MOU, I think that will also help. It will make it. It needs to be something that protects everybody and gives us some guidance going forward, because this is something that is new to what we've done in the past. And
yes. As long as it's not restrictive on my control of the juvenile office, which is not restrictive.
Right. No, we're so I think it's going to be something that I think that can help both sides. Hopefully that we can come to some type of agreement that protects everybody and works well with everybody.
I'm happy to take a look
so
at anything, and also. I don't know what role Mr. Fax will play in this, or your new attorney, but, you know, if they have questions, I'm happy to answer any questions that they have. I'm sure Perry's happy to answer any questions that they have. So.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Fax has not been a part of these conversations, although he can, I think, watch for
well, we still consult with Mr. Fax, too. But anyway, all right. Well, any comments from the commission or anywhere?
I guess I'm not clear on exactly what issues we're discussing today, and to the extent that the issue about transferring the juvenile attorney position from the prosecutor to the juvenile office is still on the table, and we need to discuss that. I'm glad that you all asked Ms. Toohey to come, because I was talking about what Ms. Toohey said, and Mr. Jackson was talking about what Ms. Toohey said, and I think Ms. Toohey needs to be here to talk about what Ms. Toohey said.
Yeah, and
So,
yeah, we're going to get to that. But
so
I
if
wanna-
we're going to address that issue, she's got things she needs
Yeah,
to
we're
go
gonna be out-
and
we're gonna
do,
be out of
and
here in
maybe we should
about-
do that
We're going to be out of
first.
here in about 20 minutes, but I want to see what Commissioner Jackson.
Well, I think that, pardon me, there's just several things that are of concern. You know, when the first budget hearing happened a week ago, there was a misrepresentation maybe that duties were going to be transferred from the prosecutor's office to the juvenile office, and that was just going to be kind of a lateral transfer, and that we weren't going to incur any expenses.
And that's exactly correct. It's a correct statement.
Except for...
The statement that I made was a correct statement. There was no misrepresentation. Now, you at the next meeting, I think, misrepresented what Ms. Toohey tried to explain to you, but...
Well, I had a conversation with Ms. Toohey. She said she didn't want to pursue the legal assistant. She would probably, within a year or so, be looking at another prosecuting attorney for her office. So that would increase
which has
the
nothing
expense.
to do with the transfer of the juvenile attorney.
I guess I'm looking at the
Juvenile attorney-
budgetary piece of it.
Yeah.
So-
Can I explain this
Sure,
to you?
I will let you explain.
And then
I was
I'll let
trying to
Ms. Toohey
explain,
too chime in, because again, I don't want to get into talking for her, but the juvenile attorney, Jeanette Ballou, performs absolutely no services for Ms. Toohey. Every service she provides is for the juvenile office. She offices in the prosecutor's office. She is technically under Ms. Toohey's supervision because she is a prosecutor in that office. But the way to look at it is she is of no help whatsoever to Ms. Toohey. Doesn't help with that caseload, doesn't help with analyzing referrals that come in, is of no help. So it's as if Ms. Toohey does not have that position in terms of assistance with the work of the office. Now, does that mean that Ms. Toohey does not have an increasing workload all the time, year after year, that has required in the past and may require in the future another prosecutor? That the two have nothing to do with one another. So it's just a net zero for her, whether Jeanette Ballou is technically in her office or Perry's office. That has nothing to do with whether in 2 years she looks at her caseload and she has 50 new sex cases coming in every year, and she needs another prosecutor. So she will continue to make decisions about the number of people she needs to staff her office, and that may increase. That has absolutely nothing to do with where Jeanette Ballou is, because Jeanette Ballou wouldn't be handling any of those cases anyway. And if I have said anything that's incorrect, Ms. Toohey, I want you to speak up. Is that fair?
That's fair.
So let's just pretend like Jeanette Ballou doesn't even exist. Ms. Toohey will continue to make assessments about whether or not she needs new prosecutor positions over the next 20 years based on the workload in her office. Does the loss of Jeanette Ballou require her to need a new prosecutor? No, because right now Jeanette Ballou is doing zero to assist her in the work of her office. So I don't know if that's helpful.
Well, I think it is, and I think that, and I appreciate that. You know, you may have been looking regardless of the case. It was just the way it was presented. It made it look like something different. So I appreciate that explanation.
I think what I said was correct, that the move of Jeanette Ballou to the juvenile office, that move will not necessitate the prosecutor's office needing to hire a new prosecutor, because they're not losing anything. But that certainly doesn't mean that she can say, I'm never ever in the future going to need to hire I'm never going to need a new position and need to hire a new prosecutor.
I totally get that.
But do you want to comment on that, Ms. Toohey? Because I really don't mean to speak for you, so, even though I am speaking. Okay.
So in all technical positions, the position that Jeanette Blue currently holds does not need to be a prosecutorial position.
Right. In fact, it shouldn't be, and I'll let her talk on that.
Okay.
You speak to what your research
So do we
convinced you.
know then what a position like that across the state of Missouri might garner as far as pay? As a first chair prosecutor, she's drawing a certain salary, but across the state, is that above average of an attorney inside of the juvenile office, or is it below? Is it par? Where do we stand?
Well,
I'm just looking
I can
at
speak to
budget.
that.
I'm just
There's
looking at-
obviously a range everywhere you go.
Yeah,
And all those ranges also are on years of steps or service.
Sure.
To whatever that county is. I mean, it varies for sure. Regarding a person with over 20 years experience, I think that's the scale.
I mean, I guess the thing that you're asking is, if we were hiring a new person with no seniority with the county and without the years of experience that Jeanette Blue has to take that position, if I were just to advertise a juvenile attorney position, would I advertise that at her salary level? No, probably not. I would probably advertise it at a lower salary level, at least at first, to see. But I also recognize that I don't know that her salary level is out of line with just what it's going to take to get an attorney with some experience to come fill that office. That's another way to look at it. And because she is a 20-year employee with the county and has the level of experience that she does, she brings with her, she has just worked herself up to that salary level. I mean,
I think that maybe there is no fair comparison across the state. As I've looked at some juvenile offices, or I've heard other county commissioners, at the summer conference, we sit around at lunch and we have obviously conversations. What's going on in your community? What's going on in your community? Hey, what do you see inside of your county with regards to this? And where we have most of the people I talk to, their juvenile offices were plain clothes, didn't carry weapons, they're not uniform, they're either all county or all state, or the mixture that we have here is a little unique, and so I think that's where some of my confusion is there is no standard. It's just kind of whatever works and whatever fits, and trying to make that work. And so now
it depends a lot on the size of the county.
So
obviously,
we have
smaller counties can't have the level of service that some larger counties can.
So we have what's been working, but now there comes a time where we need to modify it. And I think that's where maybe some of the MOU comes into play. We're going to be changing things up. Well, how do we set it in stone now? It's been working. I think Ms. Toohey had made a comment about, was it Wright County, which this county was modeled after, but it worked because of the personalities that were there at the time. But you change some of the personalities and sometimes the dynamics change. Inside this building, I think it's really pretty awesome when I sit at a table and having lunch with other elected officials from different counties, because the assessor hates the collector and the collector hates the treasurer, and here inside this building we seem to have a kind of almost a harmonious relationship. We all get along pretty well. Every once in a while there's scuttle, but for the most part inside Christian County, I think all the elected officials get along extremely well, which is unique apparently in the state of Missouri, because I've heard a lot of counties that are just bickering back and forth. They don't like each other and stuff. But at some point in time, different people come into the mix. So isn't it good to have the memorandum of understanding, the parameters to work within? Everybody knows what's going on, how everything is working. To me, I think that's the perfect organization, when there is no question. if the,
Okay. And
who's in
again,
charge of who's
I'm
doing
happy
this
to
and
look
who's
at
doing that.
whatever
Yeah.
you all want to propose. I'm just not
And we're gonna rely a little
interested in anything
bit.
that's going to limit my ability to govern the juvenile office in the way that I think it should be.
Sure. And I think that's one of those things that when you were in here a week ago, you talked about how at one point in time, we had the option. Are we a state agency or are we going to be a county agency? And we're really, I think we're a state agency, but
Well, it's a county agency with state employees.
Okay.
Which is very unusual.
so
It is
that's where
very
I think
unusual.
that's where we've got to take the bull by the horns, if you will, and get it all figured out. And we're looking at moving a position inside the county, and nothing against Mr. Barnes. It seems unique to retire out of one system, move this position over to the county system, get
Why don't we let
reemployed.
Ms. Toohey just
But if you don't
for
mind
a
just
couple of
letting me
minutes?
explain.
Okay.
Because I
Okay.
gave you that.
I say she can give you the
And-
reason.
And so, those were the things, and Mr. Barnes corrected himself. A week ago, he said that he would be managing the attorney, and he pulled that statement back, said it wasn't
I
quite
don't know if I
accurate.
corrected myself. You had indicated, or someone had indicated, that a layperson had to supervise a layperson. What I pointed out is Judge Johnson supervises us all.
Yeah.
That was-
And so
that,
so that
in regards to
answers-
that, I've never read in any kind of statutes, and I'll go back to that. There's nothing the juvenile office does, there's nothing the courts does without guidance through the statutes and Supreme Court rules. When you're talking about MOUs will never overrule the statute or the Supreme Court.
Sure, I understand that, and so I look up and I see some head shaking in the back of the room every once in a while with some statements that are made, so I may end up asking them to comment, but I think for clarity's sake, the MOU is going to be important. You may disagree and it may never come into play, but at least there's something there that puts our mind at ease. Taking on additional positions, I hate relying on grants. I know that you have a great history of getting them. I think it's great to get them, but if the government would quit taking our money away from us and just leave it inside of our community, we wouldn't need grants. All it is we're getting back a little bit of what's being taken away from us. It's nice to get some of that back, and I appreciate everybody's efforts to go get it. I wish that it wouldn't be taken away from us in the beginning, and it could just stay with us, and we wouldn't have to try to fight.
It takes a lot of time.
It takes a lot of
to get them,
time.
too. It takes a
So-
lot of time, and to maintain them, and
The federal government loves to brag about
We could
how
all
many
have more time
dollars
to
of
do our
grants money
jobs
they
if we
give
didn't
out, but
have
essentially
that.
it was ours that they took away from us, and then they give us back a little bit here and there. But I do appreciate everybody's efforts, and you're right, it does take a lot of time and energy, and not just the writing of a grant, but searching out, trying to find something, because there's stuff everywhere, whether it be public or private, depending on what organization is searching out for those. But I have a responsibility to the budget to oversee and make sure that revenues are hopefully high and expenses are hopefully lower than the revenues, and we had this adverse relationship over the past few years where the auditor is constantly shaking her head, showing us the numbers, and they're just not where we need to be taking on more and more expenses, and so those things concern us, and I think that's one of the main reasons why all of us are a little bit hesitant on some of these maneuvers. Maybe we don't like this or we don't like that, but ultimately you're in charge of running that operation. But we do have a responsibility to oversee the budget, make sure that we're doing everything we can, that we don't spend more than we take in. And revenues are dropping all the time. And you would think, as this county has grown and grown and grown and grown over the years, being one of the fastest growing counties in the state of Missouri for 30 plus years, that I've watched as an adult, and it was growing when I was a kid here in this community, we're not flush in cash. Yes, we may have $2 billion in assessed valuation, but the county's not sitting flush in cash because people just aren't shopping here and spending money, because we're primarily a sales tax versus property tax organization. So we have to be kind of mindful of our budget. Thank goodness we have an auditor that's very mindful of the budget and is constantly keeping us in tune with what's going on around us. And that's
if you
just
would
one
look
of my
at where my
biggest
budget
concerns.
was 2 years ago, I'm about $50,000 less.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's good.
That's good.
That's good.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know what else I can say here. I'm not prepared to pass the budget as of yet. I think there's some things that
Well, we're here to
We can-
answer those questions,
Yeah.
so ask your questions.
we can get to those. There's still a few things that I'm trying to figure out, and I'm going to have a conversation with our new attorney as we're starting to draft this. He'll be reaching out to Mr. Fax. We'll get the MOU going. Our human resources director is sitting in the back of the room, and she shook her head when you said something about we couldn't 1099 the attorney. We
there are
couldn't
certain
1099.
attorneys that are appropriate for
Yeah.
1099, and there are other, I think, attorney positions that are not.
Yeah.
You just have to look at each position individually.
Absolutely.
My point was, you cannot take a person, a position that really and truly is an employee, and just call them a 1099 and make that change. That the law looks beyond the categorization of the position to what the actual duties are. So that's my point. You can't just go around and say you're a 1099 and you're a 1099. It just doesn't work quite that way.
Sure.
It's all based on a very individual assessment of what that position does. So I practiced employment law for 25 years,
Yeah.
so I know the answer to that question.
Yeah, I was shaking my head. We would never do that. We would never just take an employee and be like, you're a 1099.
Yeah. You're not going to.
Well, it just seems like every time we have a conversation, it's, let's just make them a 1099.
Well,
and I'm
but
always
this
like,
is-
I don't know how we just make somebody a 1099. Unless you change the nature of their
You have
job
to.
Yeah.
fit a 1099.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you can do that.
Yeah.
Because you are eliminating a position. You are eliminating the prosecutor's office position that works in the juvenile office. So when I say, can we discuss a 1099 agreement, it's because he already has a 1099 employee. So my question is it going to be the exact same position, or is it going to be a different relationship? I was shaking my head going, no, we would never just be like, Jeanette's now a 1099.
Yeah, totally understand that. And so I think
Yeah.
that's some of the questions that will need to be answered as we go through this. Is it completely just shifting the position over, or is it you're retiring and a new position's being created, which means...
We've been over that. We're not creating a new position. I'll just be moving into a position that's already there. We've already been over that.
Okay.
And maybe one way to look at it is, so Perry comes up on his retirement date, and he gives me his resignation letter, and he says, sayonara, headed out. Gonna go look for greener pastures. And I say, sad to lose you, because for the last 10 years we've worked together well, and I've never had an issue. And you've done a good job for the county. And then I say, okay, I'm gonna have to advertise that position. So then I'm gonna make a decision. Do I advertise it as a state position or a county position, which I can do. I can decide what I think the chief juvenile officer should be. There is a little more flexibility with the county position than there is with the state position. And so a little more flexibility as to salary and things like that. The state position is capped, frankly, at a pretty low level. I make an assessment, am I going to be able to find someone qualified and experienced that I can work with who can do that job? So maybe I decide that it needs to be at a slightly higher rate of pay. It needs to be a county position. I advertise that. Perry says, oh, now, with my years of experience, I would be interested in that job at that level of pay. He comes back, he applies. I say, well, look at you, Mr. Barnes, you're the best candidate for the job. I will hire you for that position. I mean, if you look at it step by step, that's kind of how it works, and that's exactly what I have the authority to do. And that retains then someone who is willing to continue their service to the county and the juveniles of the county, and who I know can do the job. And no offense to the other gentleman in the room, who is very well qualified himself, and I hope maybe someday will be considered for a chief position. But Perry is the only state-employed chief juvenile officer in the state. Every other county with a chief juvenile officer, it's a county position. And that's because of the limitations that the state puts on those positions. So, and for those counties, really, they don't even have the option, because they gave up all of their state positions. But so it really is taking kind of an anomaly or an exception to the rule and making it more consistent with how it's done in other counties. From a service standpoint to the county, I mean, it really doesn't make a difference. You're getting the same good service either way. We're getting the same good coverage for our juvenile office, but it's just it's unusual to have a state-employed chief juvenile officer. So we can do the step-by-step process, and end up, and I may still do it that way anyway, but we just wanted to let you know what the budgetary impact of that might be. And it would be that position will now be paid at a slightly higher level. Again, most of that covered by grants.
Okay, Ms. Sweet, I know you've got a time limitation too. Do you want to make a comment or two, anything that you've heard? I know you...
I did want her to just briefly tell you all why we felt like it was really imperative to change the juvenile attorney from the prosecutor's office to the juvenile office. I mean, there is a method to our madness there. So if you just want to briefly tell them, Ms. Toohey, what your research revealed and what your opinion is on that.
Sure. So under the law, as well as the Missouri Supreme Court rules, the prosecutor may serve as the attorney for the juvenile office. I don't think it's intended to be a situation where the prosecuting attorney has an assigned staff member to the juvenile office. So I think that when we have an attorney that assists the juvenile office, the prosecutor's office has to be very aware when conflicts of interest arise. And so the duty of the prosecuting attorney is, of course, to seek justice. We have the aspect of, for criminal prosecutions, potential criminal consequences, whether that's punitive, whether it's rehabilitative. And so as long as the prosecutor is serving in the role as the attorney for the juvenile office, I have to be very mindful that we're assessing when conflicts of interest arise, and that the role of the juvenile attorney isn't conflicting with the role of the prosecutor's office. And I'd say for the majority of the cases, we proceed without conflicts arising. It's the situation where there are conflicts of interest, where I run into the issues and had informed Judge Johnson of my intent to withdraw participation staffing the attorney for the juvenile office. I don't know that I need to go into details with the specific conflicts, but there was a conflict that arose even yesterday where the attorney for the juvenile office was seeking to have a modification in bond on a criminal case and wanted to file a motion on behalf of the juvenile office in the criminal case. And I had to explain to her that first and foremost, she's an assistant prosecuting attorney. These people have defense attorneys in the case. The defense attorney is the one that needs to move for a modification in bond, not the juvenile office, in conflict with the position of the prosecutor on the case. So it is just overwhelmingly evident that their interests are different than the interests of the prosecutor's office. And Ms. Ballou is, when the position came open, when Joanna Billingsley retired, Ms. Ballou was the individual who wished to go down to the juvenile office and staff that position. And I think she does a wonderful job for the juvenile office, and she's been a great servant to the citizens of Christian County. So my hope is that she would be in a position where she would get to continue serving the Christian County Juvenile Office. But Judge Johnson is accurate. She does not provide any services to the Christian County Prosecutor's Office. I think the original arrangement, Ms. Fite was hopeful when she and Perry met, and she agreed to take on the role of the attorney for the juvenile office. She had it envisioned that this person would serve as an assistant prosecutor, would handle a court docket, would be able to be assigned criminal cases, and would be able to serve in that dual role. The reality is the juvenile office has a full caseload, and it takes a dedicated individual to serve in that capacity. And so Ms. Ballou's salary point is serving solely in the juvenile office, and then through the staffing requirements, we had to assign also a legal assistant to serve alongside the attorney for the juvenile office, just because of the volume of work that comes through and the requirements with juvenile discovery. So I really hope that something can be done to move the position out of the Christian County Prosecutor's Office, because at this point there is a conflict that has arisen. The conflict continues to arise, and it is a situation where if the attorney position remains in the Christian County Prosecutor's Office, then my position that I've spoke with Ms. Bryan about is that the contract money needs to come to the Christian County Prosecutor's Office, because it should be the prosecutor making the assessment as to a conflict of interest, not the juvenile office making an assessment that they think they have a conflict with the prosecutor's office, and therefore they're wanting to pull the prosecutor off the case and put in their own attorney. It should be the Christian County Prosecutor's Office that says, we've identified that a conflict exists, it's contrary to our ethical obligations, and therefore we're going to conflict this case out to someone else. But right now the prosecutor's office doesn't have the ability to do that, to make those conflict appointments, and it's the juvenile office that has made a determination that there's a conflict and has appointed their contract counsel to come in and assist.
So based off that, it seems like the Supreme Court would have already or been prepared to step in and kind of separate those duties. You know, we had the issue here a couple years ago. The municipal courts had to be busted up a little bit because of prosecuting attorneys for the cities that were actually managing the court systems internally, and there was too much conflict there, which it sounds like there's a lot of the potential for a lot of conflict with a prosecuting attorney employee or prosecutor being inside that office, where maybe trying to play both sides of the ball at the same time, or sit on both sides of the fence at the same time, which can't be done.
Right.
So
I think the Supreme Court tries to recognize the reality that there are counties that are so small, you know, and maybe they've even just got the one part-time prosecuting attorney, you know, with no staff, and that those counties are just simply not going to be able to afford to have a juvenile attorney, and that prosecuting attorney, for better or worse, is going to have to bear some of the responsibilities of representing the juvenile office. And so I think the Supreme Court recognizes that you can't just, you know, you just have to accept the fact that there are a number of counties in the state where, you know, unfortunately the prosecutor is going to be acting as well as the attorney for the juvenile office. But the preference, and I think really the pretty clear preference in case law, is to have those positions separate. And really to understand the conflict, for example, and when we say conflict, it's not a bad thing. It just means that you have two different interests, both of which are appropriate interests. But when you have like a child abuse and neglect situation, you know, the juvenile office may be, their ultimate goal may be reunification with those parents. And it may be to do that as quickly as it can reasonably done and in a safe way. Whereas the prosecutor's position may be, you know, those parents are never going to see those kids again, and in fact they may be going to prison. And so both of those are, there's nothing wrong with either one of those approaches. Both of those entities have duties that they have to perform. But as you can see, the juvenile attorney is going to be working with the juvenile office and advocating, you know, for eventual maybe reunification, and the prosecutor may say, I'm sorry, but we just can't advocate. You know, we can't support that. So we're going to go this way, you're going to go that way, and between all of us trying to make the right decision, we'll get to the right decision for that particular child in that particular situation. You know, but the law requires the juvenile office to be, when possible, interested in working with those parents and maybe, if it can be, eventually reunified to do that. And the state just doesn't have that legal requirement. So, you know, I'm faced all the time with a criminal defendant whose bond conditions say they cannot be around their children. You know, but yet the family court has said we will allow supervised visitation or therapeutic visitations, you know, that will be allowed, you know. And so you're balancing what can this defendant do safely, you know, and the prosecutor really, their position is going to be they cannot be around that kid. And the family court is saying, well, we think they can be in a supervised situation. So those are the kinds of things that you're talking about. And I think Ms. Toohey really concluded that it's almost an ethical situation for her to continue to have the full-time juvenile employee in her office and under her supervision. And that created a lot of concern. I mean, is that fair to say?
Understandably, absolutely.
And I'm really glad that you were here today and said that, because honestly, I didn't know that. I didn't know what you were up against, and I don't think the other commissioners did either, so I appreciate that. We're going to run out of time. I want to make sure I get both of you ladies out of here and back. So I would just say this, is that as we get closer and we make a decision to work with your budget, regardless of how it comes out, I think it's going to be obviously beneficial to the court, to the prosecuting attorney's office, and to the county. We must maintain, I'm going to do everything possible to make sure that we continue a professional working relationship with the court, the prosecuting attorney, the sheriff's office, everybody. When I got here in 20, we had a lot of different areas that the commission, they wouldn't speak to people. This county is so important, and the people are so important. We have to work together, and we will. We're going to come up with something that will make it work for all citizens, all elected officials. I know we can do it, and we're going to work on it and get it done.
Yes, and I always appreciate the opportunity, really, to answer questions and to educate. I know, you know, a lot of it is just things that, I mean, if you're not in the court system, you're just not exposed to it, and it's difficult to understand. It's certainly not intuitive in many, many ways, and so I think we're all always happy to answer any questions. I do think I think it's not appropriate to delay the approval of the juvenile office just based on the preparation of the memorandum of understanding. I don't think that that's a budgetary issue. I think that's more of a county governance issue, and so I don't know that the approval of the budget can be delayed on that basis alone, but the budget doesn't have to be approved at this point, so.
Yeah.
But whether or not we ultimately reach a memorandum of understanding, I don't think it's appropriate to not approve the juvenile budget because of that.
I think life's going to go on whether we approve the MOU or not. We're not trying to delay things, so can't get this on the agenda for this Thursday because it's already out. But we can do it next week, and hopefully we'll be in a better position to do it next week. And I don't know about whether we do it before or after we do an MOU. I have a feeling that MOU may take a little while.
I think
If
it'll
we
take
just
a
have the
little while.
understanding that we're going to try as hard as we can to work together to come up with where both sides feel okay with it, that's all I'm looking for.
And I do appreciate the working relationship that we have had in the past, and that's very important. It's very important to me. It's very important to all of the people involved in the court system, and really appreciate the fact that you all are interested in educating yourselves about it. So I think that's a good thing, and I'm always happy to answer any questions. You're always welcome to come over and observe anything you want to observe. We really want to be transparent for you all. So
I appreciate it. We've got one citizen back there that very quickly, because these ladies have got to go.
Yes, very quickly. I was watching the proceedings the past couple of meetings, and there were a few questions that popped up into my mind. One question, and it was kind of convoluted when it came to supervisory lines, was state employees and county employees supervising one another. I did dig into the statute, and there is a state law. It's 211.393. After 1999, any juvenile officers that were brought on after that date were all supposed to be county officers. And I would have to defer to Ms. Bryant about that. She would have to interpret that law. But it seemed kind of clear that after 1999, all juvenile court officers in one county, whenever we finally have the system just to our county alone, everybody was supposed to be a county officer, and the money was supposed to come from the state to compensate for the state's responsibilities and everything. So I don't know if everybody looked at that law, or if maybe you were hired before 1999. I didn't catch that. But I could just imagine in my mind all of the problems that could possibly come up, and maybe you've dodged them, between state employees and county employees, and if there were ever differences of opinions, how that could melt down an office. So that really concerned me and made me want to come here and speak to that, and maybe it's best that we investigate that law, because I think that all the juvenile court officers are supposed to be county employees, and then we're supposed to be getting money from the state to compensate for the state's part in that. The other part that I noticed was the juvenile attorney, and you guys started talking about 1099 contractors and everything. If that is a big conflict of interest, sometimes that's what contractors and contracts are for. If the description for this particular attorney was, that she's working for juveniles, and from what I understand, the attorney becomes an advocate for the juvenile, correct?
For the juvenile officer.
office.
For the juvenile officer. Okay, then that might be a good option for a contract, or it might require that they have to work for the state. I haven't seen the description of the position, so I wouldn't be able to say that. But if it was something that you could contract out, then it would be that attorney's responsibility to set up their office, to have their own practice, contract with the juvenile office to fulfill that duty and that responsibility, but they would also be able to, hire themselves out to other people. They would also be responsible for their own assistants, for their own paralegals and everything. So the county wouldn't have to foot the bill for 2 employees. They would just have to fit the bill for the contract, and then the contractor would have to set up their office, have their own phone systems, have their own assistant, all of that. Because, that is a part of that law, is that, if they're providing all of their own resources to do the job, then that's a contractor. If the state is, or if the county is providing the office and the phone system and the assistant and all that stuff, that's an employee. And that seems, that may be something that could be done. But then again, I don't know the duties and responsibilities of that particular attorney. Maybe there are some lines of communication with your office that would preclude them from being a contractor. So that's one of the things that I wanted to come down and talk about. And then the third thing that popped into my mind was the mentorship. By the time you're ready to retire, or anybody's ready to retire, or even you guys, when you're ready to say, hey, I'm done, I'm not going to run for re-election, a year, 2 years out, you should already have people in mind that you are talking to and you are mentoring to take your place, hopefully. And without that, you don't have the continuity, and then that's whenever big strife happens. And you're talking about all those other counties. If they're not thinking about all this stuff, maybe that's where a lot of those issues are arising, and maybe we're doing things right so far because we pay attention to that, and that's why we don't have the strife. And if you guys are doing that in your office, then that's great. And I'm very glad that you mentioned that in the transitioning process, maybe it would be best when you retire to open up the position, put it out there for everyone to apply to, just so the appearance of any improprieties would not be there. If someone like me just sees it happening in the meeting and says, wow, this guy gets to transition from here with a pension, with a $20,000 raise, and he gets to keep his same job, that just looks crooked. It may not be crooked, but to me, the guy standing outside watching, because I can't go out very often and I have to, entertain myself and keep my brain going, I see that and I have all of these questions, and then I want to come here and ask all of these questions. And I think that's where a lot of the questions came up that have gummed up the works with approving the budget right now. So, kind of like from a third party's point of view, that's what I'm seeing. And I don't know if anybody's read that law, 211-393, but I believe that law was intended to make sure that when you have everybody in one county, everybody's a county employee, and then the state versus county thing and supervisory stuff goes away.
Well, and I know we're a little bit short on time. I appreciate your interest and the fact that you have listened and you've done some research and you've asked questions, and the juvenile laws and the juvenile office is not an easy thing to understand. I think the law that you're referring to is really exactly what we have been talking about, which that is when the state gave the counties the decision. The state said, we're going to make everything county from here on out. Everybody you hire from here on out is going to be county. Do you want the positions you currently have as of 1999 to continue to be state, or do you want them to be county? And so Christian County and a couple of other counties elected at that time to continue to keep those positions, that at that time they were all state, all the juvenile offices. Keep those state, but then going forward, everybody hired was going to be county. So you have picked up on that, and you're exactly right, that from that point on, everybody that was hired had to be counted. And we're really, and it's important to remember we're talking about positions, not people, but those positions that were opened after that were all going to be county. So as a practical matter, although it seems on the outside that it would create a real issue, it really doesn't. The duties of those juvenile officers, whether they're state or county, are pretty much exactly the same, and that's just to perform the duties of a juvenile officer in dealing with the issues that arise, in any juvenile office. So they're all working toward the same goal, they all have the same mission, they're all doing basically the same thing. The main difference is, the state has a very specific salary scale. And the benefits can be a little bit different. And things like mileage reimbursement can be a little bit different. And the people within that office understand that. And we just work to keep those relatively consistent. So that's the main difference that we have found over the years. But since 1999, really the office has operated very smoothly. And we've really not had any issues resulting from that difference between state and county employees. But, good for you to do that research and look at that, because it is kind of we've talked about it now for about 2 hours. It's a confusing situation. And then with regard to, just quickly, the juvenile attorney, it is a full-time position. Representing the Christian County Juvenile Office is a full-time position. We have a number of attorneys that we contract with to represent the parents, and they do have their own practices. And they are appointed in cases, and they represent those parents, but they also all maintain their own practices.
They're contractors.
They're contractors. Right, and we just pay them on a monthly basis for the number of hours that they have to turn in their bills, and they get paid on a monthly basis for that. But the juvenile office attorney, we have found, is really a full-time position and requires just a full-time dedicated person. And I just don't think that there would be time for someone to do those responsibilities and maintain any kind of private practice as well. It's just, the responsibilities have just gotten that big. But I appreciate your questions, and really, we're always happy to answer questions too, and, if you ever have anything else you'd like to discuss? I don't know, Perry, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, those are great questions, and we were in a situation where we did contract that position. We contracted for many years, but our growth in this county, our case management has required where it's certainly a full-time position. The last contractor we had, that person contracted with us and Taney County. That was their full-time kind of income, but yes, it was all done with their own practice. We have just overgrown that.
Okay.
But yeah, keep us honest.
Yes.
I think that's important. So,
All right, thank you.
I know we've gone over. Thank you.
So Mr. Sanders is an example of a citizen in Christian County that wants our county to do well and is always trying to help our county. So I appreciate those comments. And so I think we're going to end right now. So I am really proud of everybody here today. We've had a great discussion, and we're going to, this commission, I'm proud of them. We're going to continue to do our due diligence. We're going to come up with the right solutions, the right answers, and we're going to get back to you all. And I appreciate everybody being here, and we'll keep going, okay?
Okay. All right. Thank you all.
Thank you. We'll just go right into we're going to go right into the commission meeting.
Thank you.
Thanks, ladies. Have a
Thank
great day.
you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Okay. We're going to go right into our commission meeting, right? So what I'm not exactly ready to do what I thought I was going to do, but we don't have until, we have until September the 1st to get our budget into Miss Amy, and it'll be in long before that. Outside on the slab, concrete slab, should be a Durango that Miss Kim had talked about. Oh, Tahoe, it was a Tahoe, sorry. Tahoe, that Miss Kim had talked to the sheriff's office. I think Miss Amy had found that out, and so it's just an option. As we're working on this budget and crunching numbers, the commission and the elected officials have had no car, 0 cars, so we've had a 0 expense on repairs and maintenance. We've had a 0 expense on gasoline. However, we've had an increased expense on mileage paid out. It's over the budget that we had projected from last year, but we did sell 3 cars last year, and to try to come up with money to buy a commission a different car. And when we talk about commission, it's used for other elected officials to drive to meetings too. And so we do have the possibility of a used Tahoe out there with 12,000 miles. We could buy that. We also have bids coming this Thursday at the commission meeting. Miss Kim Purchasing will have bids from 3 or 4 dealers, and we can continue to ask her to find another car. If we find another model we want, if we don't like those bids, we can. So we have choices. We can choose a used car from the sheriff's department and just pay him directly from one account to another account. We can buy a new car with that car has warranty. Out there on the slab has warranty, 2 years of warranty left, but the new car would have more warranty. So actually that may have 3 years out there on the slab. I think it had 5-year warranty. So anyway, we have options on the car, but I just wanted to kind of go over, and then if you all, one of the things, and Miss Amber has Johnny, did you go see this idea space that we might change your office situation? So after we get through today or sometime, I'll take you over there.
I just gave an idea. I didn't really it's not like a plan, but I thought of an idea, but I hadn't really talked to anybody but you.
Yeah, okay. Well, I wanted to talk to Richard today. I was going to try to call Richard over here this afternoon and see if he's not busy, if he can tell me what kind of estimated cost it would be to just take a little piece of the break room where that outside door is by the Coke machines and things like that, and make that into a private office. It would still be real close to here. If we can get Judge Johnson to come over here and talk to us again about what she plans on doing upstairs, and what she plans on doing 2 empty building small spaces over there that they can't put a courtroom in. I'd love to be able, because the public administrator would love to move over there in the courtroom where almost all her business is, and then we'd have another empty space here. We're just trying, but if we moved you out and put you over in a private office over here, then we could have our county attorney back there where it's more private and have his own door that he closes, and then we'd have our new legal assistant / administrative assistant that's going to start probably in 2 or 3 weeks. We could have her at that desk where Mr. Mark is setting. So those are all scenarios. If we can figure that out very quick, we can put that on our budget that we're going to be turning in. It doesn't have to be done before the end of the year, but we could start that project, and that could be a budget item for this next year, too.
Surprised.
Yeah.
You're being evicted.
Well, no, you're not being evicted.
I'm in a coat closet now.
You're not
I'm
being
good.
evicted. Everybody's got a choice in this.
I just was talking to Lynn yesterday, and I'm like, thinking about the places that you have that you don't have to ask anybody for.
No, it's okay. That was a storage closet when I moved in the first time, and I'm totally fine with being flexible to help the county in any way that we can and growth in room, so it's not.
I was going to talk to you about it.
It's okay.
It's just an idea.
Yeah.
When you're talking about a car for the commission, I know that Nixa has switched over to a service contract with, I think it's with Enterprise, where they have a contract where they've reduced their cost. Well, they have a whole bunch of vehicles, but they've reduced their annual cost by, I think, either $100,000 or $150,000 a year, because that contract eliminated almost all of the maintenance and repair costs, because Enterprise does pretty much
They went
everything.
into a leasing agreement with the fleet for the police department, different things, so there was no purchase, so they went into that. So it's part of the plans we're looking into, but
Okay.
we're a little bit different in the county with the structure, but there are some similarities and some things to be able to.
If I may, there are a few first-class counties that have tried that, and their auditors are livid. It's a nightmare.
It's a lot. It's a big undertaking, and their structure was a little bit different. I was there when they switched to that. Yeah, and so being able to see, and it ended up working out good for them. But it's a lot different here, but something definitely to peek at. Amy says no.
Well,
and the structure of it.
and that's a good idea.
The leasing agreements are
That's a
tough.
good idea. We always want to explore all ideas. And one of the things that that we have to consider, this car is not just driven by 3 men. So this car could be driven by Miss Kelly Hall. It could be driven by Miss Melissa up there in the treasurer's office. This car could be driven by other people, and so men and women sometimes have different types of cars that they feel comfortable and safe in.
Well, what perpetuated it was we had some old cars that were not reliable, that I didn't feel comfortable sending employees to training. I wasn't comfortable driving one of them when I drove it to a conference, as it did a little shake, rattle, and roll, and I wasn't playing Elvis on the tape deck. It was all over the place, and so wanting to make sure that we send our employees, whoever they may be, out in something safe and reliable to get them from point A to point B without breaking down on the side of the road was kind of a priority of mine. And so we decided to get those automobiles out of our inventory and look for something that we could feel comfortable. And I'm gonna say this, but I don't want it to sound sexist, but I'll drive anything anywhere, but I won't let my wife drive anything anywhere. I want her to be in something that's reliable and dependable, because breaking down on the side of the road, a 6'3", 300-pound man is less likely a target than a woman on the side of the road. So I think it's imperative. But even one of our guys, I don't want to send one of our guys. If it's Mitch that's going out to the road barn to do something, I want to make sure that he's in something reliable that gets him there and back in safety. And so the vehicle that we're going to get, whatever we end up getting, is under commission control. It's part of our inventory as the county commission, but we allow human resources, IT, any of the other offices that don't have a vehicle assigned to them. So that could be the collector's office, the recorder's office, the auditor would be able to check it out and use it at any time. So I think it's a very good thing for us to do, to make sure that we send our employees out safely. When we're going to training and we use our own vehicle, we're submitting mileage reimbursements. But to me, that's a big expense. But if I'm on county time driving my vehicle and I have an accident, it could come back on the county as well. And so better to be in a county-owned vehicle, and I appreciate your comment about the lease option. It's something that we've kind of looked at in the past. I don't know that it's a perfect setup for us, but there are county lease options for dump trucks and bulldozers and everything. And I'm interested to learn more about it, but also take the advice of the auditor on occasion.
And we also did eliminate some of the other vehicles where we had, sold multiple vehicles that were needing oil changes and all the things to get one reliable vehicle. So it wasn't something we just budgetorily said, hey, let's just go buy a new vehicle randomly out of nowhere. It was something that was built towards too, that helped, like you said, to have something reliable singular than to have multiple vehicles that weren't reliable that we're constantly having to maintain as well. So.
And I think it was a good exercise for us to even look at that, because and that started basically about the time I went to my very first conference after I got here, which was within a month of starting, and I drove that vehicle, and I'm like, this is not safe and reliable. We should be looking at something else. We prompted us to do an inventory search of what we owned, and we actually found that we had a Ford Taurus that nobody knew we even owned, sitting on the lot over there. So it caused us internally to look at our inventory, tighten up our inventory, see what our needs are, and if that's not a need, let's get rid of it. Let's do good by the taxpayer and not have it sitting around here.
Yeah, we also saved taxpayers money because we, as we started that process, we were Ms. Toohey's office, prosecuting attorney, was one of the offices that used our car a lot. Sometimes they needed 2 cars, and and that was fine. We're glad that they used it. But as we were looking through all our car inventory, we found a couple of cars that we could transfer from one department to another, and so they've got their own cars. They might still need our car again, but they've got their own cars now, and it was within our own fleet. So I think that's really good. So Miss Kim in purchasing is probably one of the best purchasing agents in the state, and so we're really lucky to have her here. So that's helped us. And last thing about the cars is we're all looking at something kind of like a mid-sized SUV. I don't want something small that gets great gas mileage, but as soon as you have a wreck, you're dead. I don't want the employees to be in that type of situation. And that's what you're talking about, safety.
I was talking about safety, but I wasn't talking about death. I was just talking about breaking down on the side of the road.
I'm talking about if you have a wreck in a small car and you've saved 10 miles a gallon because of gasoline, but you die saving it, that's not worth it. So we're going to try to make sure that we have a safe car that's economical for our county, and we'll match both of those things up. Mark, I don't know, did you guys see the budget Mark, did you send that to the gentleman?
Yes, I did.
Okay. I thought that was really great. Over the weekend, I studied that. He was able to come up, because we've never had a county attorney in-house before, and so we have a range of expenses and things that we've never encountered, and it's still evolving because the position's evolving and things like this, and we'll have additional expense because it looks like we offer a position to our Miss Brenda yesterday.
Yes.
And
I give people 3 days to.
Pardon?
I give people 3 days to respond.
Okay. And so honestly, we've got some expenses, but it's going to be, I think, in the long run, we're going to save money, and we're going to, not only are we going to save money for the county, we're also going to provide better legal work, because we have an attorney at commission meetings, we have at work studies. We don't have to wait for our attorney, who does a great job, does a great job, but he may be doing, he may be in court all day, and we don't get a call back till the next day. Sometimes that's not very timely, and so I think it's going to be really good to have our own county attorney, and so we're working on those expenses. He's already had a great meeting with Ms. Toohey yesterday, and so we're hoping that we can piggyback off of their their electronic library, law library. I mean, you know, today you don't buy all those books that are hundreds and hundreds of dollars. You can do all of it online, and so we're hoping that we can just get another license for Mr. Mark and for Miss Brenda if she takes the job that will save money, and we'll just add 2 licenses to her deal. And they're having a meeting coming up pretty soon with the company that.
We're working on scheduling that right now.
Yeah, so that's coming up. So we'll know all these. We're going to know all these expenses before we actually turn that into the auditor. But those are all working. Did you guys see anything on that wall?
Everything looks fine to me.
Everything looked good for you. Okay. One thing that Commissioner Williams was talking about just, I think, yesterday to Mark, I heard that, and he was asking about a shredder. And I know we had a shredder here for a while, and probably wasn't being used as much as it needs to be. So I think we took that shredder over to the collector's office. Is that where that went to?
We have a service that comes.
We have a service that
Yeah.
comes.
But where's our shredder that was in here?
It wasn't a shredder, it was just a
It was
trash
a
can.
shredder.
Oh, it's just,
Just a
oh,
shred bin.
trash
It
can.
was just a bin.
Okay.
Yeah.
So probably, okay, so
I was just talking about like a little one, so when I have something I want to do it there, but if I take it over,
There's
whatever.
usually
Service
one
because
outside
they
the
come on
auditor's door.
site, And then they shred it here.
Not that way.
So just run everything
Of that
over
one.
there.
Don't use that
That
one.
service
They just have
doesn't
service
exist
in
anymore.
Ted. Is that where it is?
We'll have to, I mean.
I think your
there's
shred bin is
multiple-
actually in my office. They brought it
Okay.
up to my office.
And I don't
Okay.
mind to do it to wherever to take it. That was
Well,
just saying that I have a lot of
everybody-
documents a lot of times that I'm like, ugh, I can't just throw this in the trash.
Just set up a recycle box and then you can bring it up to my office and throw it in the shred bin.
Okay.
Everybody's on a different pickup based
Okay.
on how much.
I didn't know we
goes
had
in.
that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, well, that's good, because I just want, I know now that we have an attorney in-house and we'll have a legal assistant that's typing things up, there's going to be things, there'll probably be more things that we need to destroy. And so we'll figure that out, whether we're taking it across and we just have a box here to collect every day, and you take it over there every day to either your office upstairs, or we take it over to Ted's office and just dump it.
There's more room in my office than Ted's. There's more room in my shred bin than Ted's.
Okay, well, we'll do that. So we don't have to really buy anything. So that's good, okay. I don't think I had anything else. Made a couple pages of, and kind of, you know, it was kind of, the year before on maintenance of cars, it looked like that we'd spent about $950 on maintenance of cars. But if we buy a brand new car, we're probably not going to have, and maybe we can get some free oil changes, rotation, the tires and stuff like that. We may not have much of a maintenance, so this year, zero after the first 7 months, because we don't have a car. But anyway, we'll work on all those things. One of the things that we're going to need to talk about is on dues. On dues, we have. Hi, Miss Kim. So hi, Miss Miranda. So on dues, probably the thing that we need to concentrate on and try to get it as quick as we can is find out what all the chamber. I know they're probably wanting to raise rates, and they're probably also trying to get different type of levels of sponsorship. I know Nixon is trying to do that. Ozark's trying to do that. But I personally, you guys need to chime in, but I don't think that we can really spend a lot more money on chamber dues. I believe it's important to be a member. I think it's important to be active in the chamber, but it's one of the areas that we can try to keep our budget pared down is by dues. And we have a issue that we're going to have to decide. We decided before we send this budget to Miss Amy, and that is Show Me Christian County, that we've traditionally given $50,000 each year to their budget. The city of Nixa has also given 50. The city of Ozark has given 50, and then Clever, I think, gave 10. Sparta gave 5. That's real close. I don't know if any other municipalities, maybe Highlandville gave 2 or 3, and then they have private investors and they have other investors, but they're wanting 60,000. I've already heard the presentation, and they're wanting a $10,000 increase. We're going to have to decide when we turn that budget in whether we're going to agree. Their year end ends halfway through ours, so their year end is getting ready to start a new year.
Their year started July 1st.
Oh, it started July 1st. Okay, so it's already going. So that kind of presents a little bit of a problem with the way we budget and they budget, but we're certainly not going to change ours. But we've already made our check out. I think we've already paid them for the $50,000 for this year. I don't think it's a bad investment because that's economic development that none of the chambers do like they used to, and the commission and none of us really have the time to invite and court these developers and things like that. So I think it's a solid investment. It takes time. You know, it's like growing a garden. You don't get the garden right away. You gotta water and have sun and pull weeds and do all that stuff before you get it. But we have to decide: can we afford $10,000 more? And if we do that 60, they're probably going to expect 60 every year too. So what you do one year is what they're going to probably expect again. So dues is one of the things that we want to.
And I would go so far as to say, with regards to dues, it doesn't necessarily behoove us to be the highest tiered level sponsor in the chamber organization. I think it's more important that we're a member of the chamber and we can be on the lower tiered end of things. And Ozark and Nixa are going to be more expensive than Sparta's and Clever's chamber. I think Clever's, is somewhere around $100, $120 a year. I go to every one of those meetings. I pay for, the meeting lunch out of my own pocket. I don't get a reimbursement for that. I do the same thing when I go to Ozark. So I think we're good there. I do think when it comes to the Showcase Ozark event and the Nixpo event, I think we need to have booths there so that we're doing community engagement with our citizens, so they have the opportunity to ask us questions and learn information. And we've done that traditionally. I think last year we may have missed out on it, or this spring we may have missed out on it in Ozark. But any information that we've got that's important to our citizens, whether we're pushing the ClearGov app so they can understand our budget and know what's going on, or if it's Senate Bill 190 getting that information out to everybody, if it's the assessor's office answering questions, if it's us just explaining whatever the hot topic of the day is, then I think that's important for us to be there at those events. And those don't cost very much, and we can afford that by not taking the highest tiered level as a member in the chamber. And if we're there engaged at those meetings, I think we're doing our job. When it comes to Show Me Christian County, I don't know that we're ready to make a jump to another level or a higher level. I'd like to hear from them maybe their justification for the increase and weigh that. But I think $50,000 is a very generous contribution to economic development. The change of roles is Show Me Christian County became that that recruitment arm of economic development. And I just now recently took on a position on the steering committee for the Missouri Association of Counties with regards to economic development. So I highly believe in our position to try to recruit businesses, and I support the chambers in their position to retain businesses in our community. But sometimes being more engaged and more involved is better than just throwing more money at stuff. And I'm very proud of all their private donors that have stepped up and invested, and I think Show Me Christian County is doing a good job bringing new businesses into our community. But I don't know that I can say we need to up our investment in it.
I would agree.
Yeah, so let's do this. Miss Amy, you and I have talked about maybe shifting it to a percentage of sales tax collected. If you would, what you and I discussed, send the email to all three commissioners again with, I think we were talking about a 0.5, and we were talking about maybe a couple of different percentages, and then show us what that would bring for them based on these levels.
0.5% would be $30,000.
0.5% would be 30. Well, and show us to how you get to 50, what we're doing today, and then maybe show us what it would have to be to get to 60. But here's the thing:
It would
they
have
need
to be a full percent.
1%. Okay, so let's look at that. That's a possibility of how we do it. That shows them, and I'm not picking on them, but I mean, if they're concerned about our sales tax decline like we're concerned about our sales tax decline, we need partners that help our county. And to me, that's one of their jobs too. And I know they've had a program, but we might just look at that, okay? So if you don't mind sending that out to all
I think we
three
could
of us.
schedule a work study session to kind of sit around the table, and even if Show Me Christian County comes in, I'd prefer it just be us, but obviously if we're meeting in any kind of session, we're open to the public. But I think we should look at an option like that. Now, Show Me Christian County is not just bringing in sales tax generating
No, they do.
businesses. I mean, they're bringing in other opportunities as well. I think they take great pride in the work that they do. They brought the new hospital clinic on 65 is one of their projects into the community. It's not really generating much sales tax revenue, if any at all, but it's going to generate property tax. And I don't know if Show Me Christian County, do they, and Ms. Bryant, you may be able to answer this, do the school districts partner with Show Me Christian County and allocate funds to them? Because every piece of property that's developed increases their revenue stream. So I think maybe before we start writing bigger checks, maybe they ought to look at other partners to come in and help. Sorry, didn't mean to throw you under the bus there, but more businesses being developed, more farmland being turned into homes, more farmland being turned into businesses creates property tax revenue that we see very minuscule amount of, and we know there's other taxing districts that receive a lion's share of that. So just a question.
I have a quick question. I know when the Show Me was first forming up, their business plan, so to speak, was at some point to be self-sufficient and no longer needing funds from the county. Has that changed, or have they projected that further out, or what is their plan?
The last I had talked to them, they were talking about the plan was to be into the private donors section of that to fund that. So it'd be a really good question to sit down and see where they are with that as their growth. As I've looked at it, I think Show Me Christian County does a great job, and I support them wholeheartedly. But as we just saw with the budget that we just went over with the court, the extreme amounts of money that's growing, we can't be the fastest growing county and have a stagnant sales tax growth and expect to be able to keep up and continue to give to the outside, where we have to be able to protect our employees and protect the entities on the inside. So not that I don't think they're worth it, I just think in this cycle and looking at the budget and the increase of where we are, it would be hard for me to say, yeah, we're going to increase, to an entity like that. And back to what we were talking about just a second ago with the office space or the moving, with the budget portion, talking about possibly modifying something here. I know we put out for a bid to look at what it may cost to finish the building out next to the clinic, and knowing what space we may have if people could move, and then also meeting with the judge. We may want to get some of that back and which is terrible timing right up to the deadline, but getting some of that back and seeing where that growth is, so maybe we don't waste money modifying something for a very short period of time when we could just push through and get that. So maybe we'll be able to find out some more numbers. Maybe it's possible, maybe it isn't possible, maybe we have to do some shifts, but that might be able to help us get some more clarity on some of those answers.
It's a great idea to shift from just giving them a set amount of money every year to a percentage of sales tax. But from what I've seen, Show Me Christian County, I think they're focused more on restaurants and businesses like that, sales businesses like that, when our county actually doesn't need that as much as it needs industrial and commercial, commercial and professional. Because 70% of people in Nixa work up in Springfield. I think the number's the same in Ozark, and it's probably close to the same all the way across the county. That means the majority of our money is not here. Whereas if we had more industrial and we had more commercial, businesses here, more money would stay here, more jobs would stay here. Maybe we could whittle that down from 70% to 60%. That would be huge, because if you had 10% more people staying here and working here, they would be here for lunch. They would be here, at the end of the day and be shopping here instead of finding it more convenient up in Springfield to eat it. I mean, they have to eat lunch up there. They're not going to drive all the way down here to eat it out, Iguana Roja and then drive all the way back up there. It's just impossible. And right now, in Nixa and Ozark, the only people I see here are government employees, are county, city, and school employees. And then a very little bit of employees working at the restaurants and everything. People at school, which is the largest employer in the county, they can't leave school to go to the restaurants. That kills our restaurant industry. But if we had industrial and we had commercial, if we had more legal offices, if we had more accounting offices, if we had more professional offices down here, then the money would stay here a little bit more. If we could get Show Me Christian County to focus on that through the percentage, hey, we're going to give you 0.4% for sales taxes coming from all the restaurants and everything and all the commercial businesses, but we're going to give you a higher percentage for the industrial part. What are they going to focus on? Hey, we need to get industry down here so that we can, make a little bit more money ourselves. It would be a great incentive, to do that. But I just don't see them finding heavy industrial, light industrial, or any type of commercial business to get into the county to offset that exodus to Springfield that really causes the biggest problem with our sales taxes.
And they have brought some of that stuff in. You just have to look at it by numbers. If a business wants to come in and they need X amount of employees or an X amount of whatever, they have to look at where they can get that through their studies and things. But I do know that they've brought some of those things in, but it's definitely a constant thing that we need to look at and continue to grow in.
It's always a challenge, and I think transportation is a challenge. You look at the hospital clinic that they've built. It's not easily accessible to anybody that's working there on a 30-minute lunch to go run to something and get back. They'll spend half their time trying to get to one of the other exits from where it's located. But you have a great point, and obviously you haven't paid attention to Facebook very much, because the number one thing we need in this community is a good steakhouse, a good sit-down steakhouse dinner. Look at Facebook, you'll find that out. That's the number one thing we need. But you're right. I mean, we do lose, and I think the number is right at the low 70 number. 70% of our population in Christian County will evacuate our county every day to go to work, whether it be down in the Taney or Stone or going up to Green, primarily up to Green. And when they're there, they're spending money there, whether it be lunch or swinging by the grocery store or swinging by the Target or whatever the case may be, because it's perceived easy or quick or whatever the case may be. They're picking up their coffee at there instead of one of our coffee houses. And so having a primary focus, and I think Show Me Christian County, just to be fair to them, they're not just focused on bringing in restaurants and stuff. They're looking at the big ticket items, and sometimes those are harder to produce than those smaller, trying to get restaurants and stuff. And that's where the chambers have to jump in and assist them and help them. But they need to be motivated, or they need to be incentivized, if you will, to keep them hungry. I think if they know they can earn a percentage of sales tax, if our sales tax is low, they get a less amount. If our sales tax grows, they're getting a larger amount. It's not going to hurt the county. Because if we're paying them based off the percentage that they're bringing in, then the higher that number goes, the more money is coming into the general revenue of all of, whether it be the municipality or the county. Now the ambulance district 911, that's sales tax generated, and that's good because that helps keep the property taxes low on everybody. So.
Good comments, everybody. Ms. Brandon, do you know where we stand on that $1 million grant that was supposed to build the road in front of the Chevrolet, taking it all the way down to Creative Audio?
No, that was
That's a city
special.
Yeah. Well, we're going to find out.
issue.
You guys want me to invite them to Show Me Christian County to our commission meeting next week?
I mean, it's fair if we're having a work study.
We can make that work study at the end of the session and spend 45 minutes, an hour, whatever we need to do. I think we need to get them over here. We'll have our sales tax information by that time, and I think that's the way to go for the future. Is if they can help us, then we can afford to pay them a little more, so I think that's good. And if you all, one thing that's important is that we go to chamber meetings. We just don't pay our dues and don't go. We have commission members and we have other elected officials that go to Clever, Nixa, Ozark, Sparta. There's hardly ever a meeting that we don't have someone from the county represented, so I think that's very good. So, Commissioner Williams, if you will check with Clever and Nixa and see
what their basic
what their dues are going to be, structure, and if you will do, Commissioner Jackson, if you will do Ozark and Sparta, and then I have no problem with, because we used to always be involved in the big events where we have the public coming in and we can showcase what the county's doing and be there and answer questions. I think that could be a good investment. It's not that expensive, but we'll need to know how much that is. If Clever's doing one or whatever, but we know that Nixa does, so we need to get those costs. You need to send those to Mark. Don't send them to me. You guys send those totals to Mark as soon as you can get them, where we can go ahead and continue to propose our budget to Miss Amy. Okay, so that's it. Any ideas on small equipment, small equipment under 1,000, large equipment over 1,000 that we need to?
The only thing is, if I do go to a different office, that desk probably not gonna fit. So.
Okay.
It probably won't hold together.
It probably won't.
It may not make the transition.
It probably won't. But so that's the only thing. I mean, it's impossible to know. I don't know if we need to put something in there for a desk, just in case I move it. I'll have to have something. Maybe we can find something here that might get me by or something for time being and wait. I don't know.
We might just put something in there to hold a spot with a number on it, and maybe we won't need it. Miss Amber, what about phone? We'll need does IT have any extra phones, or do we need to buy a phone for for our administrative assistant, legal assistant?
I don't know about that, I'll have to ask, but I think we have phones.
Well, you might help me by asking.
IT guy sitting right in front of you.
Do we have?
Yeah, Mitch.
We have an extra phones.
So, yeah, so,
We always buy new ones. We'll just have to keep going.
okay. Well, also, I don't think you probably have, but you check and see, do you have a new computer? Probably 2 monitors is probably what.
We have monitors and keyboards, but we would have to get like a desktop.
Okay. Well,
Or we have like older ones.
But that won't be on next year's budget, so
So you're
that's,
gonna need that now.
we're going to buy that now, so we're not.
unless you ordered to just sit there and
No,
stare at
okay.
it.
No, okay, then we don't have to worry. We're going to, we
1960s era.
we'll buy it now, okay.
Ledger book.
All right. And while we've got Miss Kim in here.
I'll get a number to you.
You have that car out there? Okay, we're gonna go look at it, and then you're gonna give us a lease, you're gonna give us some,
All the bids are not due just yet. We still have an hour, so
Okay.
as soon as I get all those bids, then I'll let you know. But I want
you might have them Thursday?
Oh, we'll have them tomorrow.
Oh.
We'll have them by the end of the day today.
Okay. All right.
But I wanted to show you what is out there that Sheriff said that you might want.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. Anything else if you all think of anything else, I would appreciate if we can try to get it in this week where Carrie and I can get this inputted into the system. So we're going to try to make this as accurate as we can on our budget. So, nobody, can you think of anything else?
We have a 10 o'clock work study, and that gives us 9 minutes
Yeah,
to
so we're
stand in recess.
Yeah, we're going to recess, and people can do whatever they need to for 9 minutes, and we're going to start again at 10 o'clock. are back out of recess. Commission meeting starting work study number 2. But before we start our work study, I want Miss Amber to come up and give us a little information about a September 3rd grand opening of our new health center.
Yes.
So we're going to do communications first because she's got another time schedule.
Well, I'm walking around to all the offices to explain this to them and make sure that they know they're invited. We are actually opening to employees next Monday on the 25th, so you can start being seen on the 25th at the clinic. But our grand opening is what I'm trying to make sure everybody knows about. It is September 3rd. It's an open house style from 8 to noon. We're asking, elected officials to kind of, if they can, let their employees kind of stagger through so they can see the facility and be comfortable with it. And then we will have a ribbon cutting at noon. And Chris Russell has invited all of the county chambers to come. So we will, I need you guys there.
And when is that?
Yeah, very good.
September 3rd.
We might have.
That's right in front of you, purple paper.
Oh, the ribbon cutting, is it noon?
Yeah.
Yeah, it says on the...
I can't read it. Don't
Also,
try to confuse me with that.
I am telling employees that you can go to our website, you can click on Carry TC, and you can go to that website and learn some more information. You can also schedule an appointment. There's a QR code on here, but I am telling everyone that's not going to work until Monday.
But that's the app where you go in and schedule
Yes.
stuff.
We in HR have the ability to make an appointment for people as well if they can't figure it out. And then the clinic will have a phone number starting Monday they can call as well. The HR has the ability to make appointments because we send people for workers' comp and drug testing, so we do have that ability, although we don't have any connection after you are seen there. So.
Very,
Just want to make sure everybody knows I am walking to every office.
For people watching, this is for county employees. This isn't open to the public.
No public.
Thank you.
Okay, very, very, very good. So our clinic actually opens next Monday.
Yes, for
And,
employees.
For employees. And I think that's very important, and I appreciate you going around. I know that we will also visit with elected officials and keep talking about this. This is very important for our county and for our employees. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. The next item is our second work study, talking about the conditional use permit on accessory dwellings.
Welcome back.
All right, Mr. Todd, I'll let you start this.
So,
And Mr. Scott.
the commission asked that we look into this topic regarding our zoning regulations and the issue of accessory dwelling units as a secondary use on parcels. We, over the last 2 years, saw more than we typically would instances of a request for having a accessory dwelling unit greater than 1,000 square feet of living space that's allowed in the regulations. So that, I think, made this topic something of interest and timely. And looking further into it, we found that since 2010, we've really only dealt with 9 cases that had this particular topic at hand. For whatever reason, we happen to have almost half of them in the last 2 years. So it's understandable that you all are like, wow, what's going on? The P&Z Commission went ahead and looked at the suggestions that we had. Those included really some content that brings some clarity to the issue, which is definitely helpful, especially helping the public to understand what an accessory dwelling unit is, and the limitations and the requirements and so forth. So I think there's some good additions in that aspect. I think the sticking point that we have right now is that number, for the maximum amount of square feet in an accessory dwelling unit. It was 1,000, it currently is 1,000, and some numbers were thrown out to possibly raise that to as high as 1,800 square feet. The recommendation from the P&Z Commission was they whittled that down to 1,500 square feet, but even that, I think when you look at it in light of the cases that we've had historically, it doesn't really change the amount of conditional use permit requests that would work their way to the Board of Adjustment. I think that's kind of where the discussion begins.
Okay, very good.
So, if you don't mind, I may kick this off a little bit. You know I hate conditional use permits.
I'm aware.
I've been very shy about that in my time, and I have voted for one in my entire existence.
You did, I was there.
For one. And that was because it was bringing back into a single-family home, and when they were done, they were going to get rid of their conditional use permit. The reason I don't like conditional use permits is because I feel that it's just a legalized loophole to circumvent the ordinances that we have in place, or the zoning that we have in place. So I feel, in my opinion, as well as many other people's opinions, that laws are there to be governed by. When you have conditional use permits, some people win and some people don't win. And that's hard to equally apply the law to everybody when some people can get it and some people can't. Whatever the reasoning may be, and each one of them probably has their own independent reasoning why they would be denied or approved. I know in my experience at the City of Ozark, we've bounced around conditional use permits, and it's a little bit tougher in side of municipality on a smaller lot size to do conditional use permits, but we have zoning regulations right now for a reason. And some people will say, well, the reason is this or the reason is that. Some people will say, well, it's to limit the amount of septics that are out there. Maybe it's the amount of wells that are drilled. For whatever reason, we have these adopted zoning regulations that would put one home on 3 acres or 5 acres, depending on that zoning designation, to then turn around and say, but we'll allow a conditional use permit for a secondary structure to be built on that. And if I'm 25 years old and I decide to build my house and build a conditional use permit home, and I rent that home out for 50 years, I've generated pretty good income. What was the purpose for only allowing one home originally? I totally get that there are people that need accessory dwelling units, for whatever the case may be. Mother-in-law, father-in-law, mom, dad, disabled child, whatever the case may be, and I want to be able to accommodate people in those kinds of situations, but then how do you accommodate the people in those situations, you know? I have done some research and I've looked where in some places accessory dwelling units are allowed, but they're within so many feet of the primary residence. They're attached to an existing garage or a pool house or a loft over a garage, or one of those cases that then would be conducive to assisting a family member that needs help versus just generating revenue and income, which normally wouldn't be allowed. Otherwise, we'd subdivide lots down to, you know, less than an acre if you know, but we don't have sewer systems, so we're trying to control the amount of septics. So I guess that's where I'm at, is what's really the purpose of having accessory dwelling units and then allowing up to 1,800 square feet. Most accessory dwelling units in my research were also much smaller, 400, 500, 600 square feet, because they're accommodating one person of special needs inside of some other structure within so many feet of the primary residence. If I got 5 acres and I put a house over here that's 1,800 square feet, and I can build a secondary house over here that's 1,800 square feet, I've violated the traditional zoning regulations, but we've allowed it through a conditional use permit. So what's the purpose? Why don't we just why don't we get rid of the 3 acre regulation and just say, do whatever you want?
I think this is where you go back to why I think the square footage should remain at 1,000 square foot, because if you're looking at that, in the long term of it, it hurts the owner of the property to build something that's close and equal to value to their own house, because it can never be subdivided off. So therefore, even if they live there forever and pass it to their kids, or they decide to sell in an emergency situation, and that's why I'll explain that in all those conditional use permit meetings, is you're never going to be able to split this off. So if you build a $300,000 house that's 1,800 square foot, and then you build another one for $300,000, 1,800 square foot, you got to ask somebody to come in and pay $600,000 to live in a $300,000 house. And that's where you clutter that. Where you go back to the 1,000 square foot minimum is for a circumstance that you have a child with autism, or you have parents. But those people, why it's so rare, as we've seen, is because people trying to tie that together and saying, ooh, is it worth building this? And there may be circumstances where it is and it's close. But allowing the conditional use permit, there are going to be circumstances behind that are going to, where people need, for instance, the people that built the shop house, and they stayed in it until they were able to save their money and build their house, and then they were able to convert that to a shop. Or you have a situation where, you have a young child that as they hit teen age, they want their independence, but they can't live on their own, and that's going to be something that is going to be long-term, that maybe even they're able to marry at some point, so needing a 1,500 square foot, space, they go through that approval process. By being over the 1,000 square foot, where you're really starting to make it more of a home than in that small dwelling, they actually have to go through the process with the Planning and Zoning Board to make sure everything's in check, where if we start pushing that number higher, we're letting bigger houses go in there. So me personally, I think if we're keeping it, the square footage needs to remain smaller, so that if we do end up in the bigger, we can explain to them, you do this, you're hurting your own value, I hope, but people's needs are going to be their needs.
Ultimately, that's on them.
Sure.
And we're maybe trying to protect them from themselves, if you will, and that's probably not necessarily our responsibility, but I get your point. I kind of I think having accessory dwelling units are good. I think there's so many scenarios that they could come in very handy to help out specific situations. But I think that I would prefer to see accessory dwelling units allowed within so many feet of the primary residence, serving as a multi-use, whether it be a pool house, home, a garage, home, whatever that case may be, versus just a complete standalone structure that's got its own separate septic, because you're limiting the usage, right? So if you build a garage next to your home and it has living quarters in it for whomever, that's not an entire family of people moving in that's pulling water out of the well and putting sewer into the ground. And it's accommodating whatever hardship there may be. That's where I would like to see us go with accessory dwelling units, be something more along those lines versus a complete standalone home on the property.
I can tell you that's the majority of what we do see.
Yeah.
Is a giant garage with a little apartment.
And having the ability, and I'll agree with the conditional use permit in the sense that it was used most recently, where they had their building permit, they lived in their garage. We need this transitional piece to where we can build our stick home, and we're going to rip the living quarters out. Because once we go and we inspect that the living quarters have been removed from that, our business with the conditional use permit's done. We can wash our hands of it. But when we create a conditional use permit for the standalone home over here, we're theoretically monitoring the conditions that were placed on it to eternity, which is more work on our staff to keep up with, keep records of, and so I would like to see us kind of overhaul conditional use permits and make them allowable in our zoning district without any kind of thing, provided they hit all those necessary parameters. And then if we have a conditional use permit that comes forward that is really just a temporary transition, like we just recently saw, I'll vote for that. But I won't vote ever to circumvent the ordinances that are written, just because we have a clause that says we can.
Well, we do have.
It's not a clause.
It's a clause. I mean, that is the regulation. It
Oh, I
provides for
understand.
that. So it's across the United States, the majority of communities use this. So
Yeah.
Are we smarter than the rest of the country? In some areas, maybe yes.
In some
I
areas,
think
maybe,
it
yes.
gives us that structure to have the flexibility and understand what they're doing and the wear and tear on the septic and the water and all the things. And I agree with you, it's great if people can build on to their house or whatever, but there's going to be certain circumstances maybe they don't want them that close, or it's a situation of that freedom. I mean, I hate to be like that, but that's where the square footage thing comes down. If somebody's building 1,000 square foot, that's a big difference than an
It
1,800,
is.
2,000
But
square foot.
what's the intent of the purpose to have zoning regulations if we just have the ability to circumvent them?
But this is a zoning regulation.
I get it.
And I understand what you're saying as well.
I understand
I
what
do,
you're saying,
completely.
but it is, but otherwise we're
How would you
dealing with
write it
freedom.
out? How would you write it out to make it where, 'cause I understand what you're saying, but I'm not following you completely of how you would word that and how you would put that together to say.
It's going to take a little bit of wordsmithing and obviously some legal knowledge to, where we don't box ourselves into a corner or prevent certain people from being able to understand it, But I think it's going to take a little bit more work. I'd be happy to try to work something up and bring it forward as a proposal, but I hate the thought, and I had a conversation with a gentleman that called me the other day that said, hey, I want to do this, and I'm like, yeah, it's not going to be allowed. Well, what about that conditional use permit? Well, you can go that route if you want, I guess. I'm going to tell you where I stand, on the conditional use permit. And so he's not sure what he's going to do. I told him to reach out to you guys to see if he does.
No objection to anything that's been said, but maybe Todd and Scott can clarify. So I think even if you said, like, get rid of conditional use permits altogether, and your regulation is what your regulation, an applicant can still request a variance, correct? Which would then come back before you all anyway. So I think, like, whatever you decide, I think some consideration should be given as to how you're going to make sure that you back up that decision for each different person that comes in front of you, because they're still going to come in front of you. It's just instead of a CUP, it's going to be for a variance. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
What kind of things would they go in front of the Building Code Commission in comparison to for changes, or is that just based on just that would be changes ahead of time, but then in the inspection portion? Am I saying that right?
Well,
Sorry, I'm a little bit all over
if it's
the
a
place.
question for the Building Code Commission, that generally would be if they disagree with an interpretation by the code official.
Okay.
And want to appeal that decision. But
I just say that based on how we write that up.
and we have that same mechanism in planning as well. If somebody wants to file an appeal to a decision by the planning administrator.
And I think you all have heard of variance to the road standards before as well. So
I think it would just come down to however you put that together and make it make sense.
And I honestly think these things are going to pop up more frequently. You have a lot of, I don't know, I guess growing up, one of my biggest thoughts growing up as a boy was getting out on my own. And now I see that a lot of people like to stay closer to home. Even we have young adults that are in their high 20s, 30s that live at home with their parents or want to live close to parents. And I think we're going to see some more of this happen. So we need to be prepared for that. I know that I've had several conversations with people that have said, hey, my mom's 90 years old, she's in really bad shape, I can't have her in my house because it's not big enough, but what if I put a trailer out here? Well, the zoning doesn't allow for the trailer to be here, which is, to me, kind of crazy because that's really temporary. We could put a set time limit on the trailer being there connected to power and water and sewer. I just think that we're going to run into these issues a little more frequently. And I think there are some, if I'm not mistaken, there's some designations with trailers that some are not designated as a mobile home, but they're a travel trailer. And I don't know how the zoning specifically lines those out.
Well, they're
Prefab homes that are technically on wheels, but they're
constructed to a completely different standard than a regular home is. Now, a modular home is, we treat those as if it is a stick-built home, because it's essentially what it is. They just bring it in a station.
Yeah.
And making that temporary mobile home or travel trailer disappear at some point is oftentimes a little more challenging than it might seem.
Sure, and I think we have
And
several.
do you want that pulled up next to your property when you built the?
You know, when you live in a county, you give up some of your.
Let's not get crazy.
Well, you do. There are less zoning regulations in the county than there are in the city.
Oh,
there are
absolutely.
less opportunities for you to complain about what your neighbor's doing in the county than there are in the city. I think we have several identifiable areas. I can think of a couple of them off the top of my head inside the county where mobile homes maybe have multiplied on a parcel of land and shouldn't necessarily be there. And so I kind of agree with your sentiment that those are kind of a difficulty to deal with.
Another aspect of the conditional use permit is if someone is proposing a large additional dwelling and their plan is to put it in an area that y'all don't feel is appropriate or it's too big, doesn't make sense, you can just say no.
I agree.
True. Yeah, that is possible. I just like more consistency, I guess. I think 1800 is just defeats the purpose.
I think so too.
I would like to see more consistency in the accessory dwelling in ADUs. I think a little bit more consistency and definition with those could probably help.
And we tried to add that in this amendment. Some real clarity to it. But as far as the style and so forth, there's only so much we can do, and I think property owners do like to keep some say over what they do on their property.
Sure.
So we just thinking to leave it the way it is until you have time to work up whatever your idea is for us to go over, and then
Yeah, I mean,
time to go from there. Because we're not fully following
when I guess when I ask for a work study session, it's never a one-time thing.
Sure.
It's usually the first one is throwing everything out and seeing what sticks against the wall, and then there's usually the necessity to come back and
Makes sense.
and then go through a proposal. And again, I would be happy to try to create more clarity with my thoughts.
Yeah.
And bring this back. I just didn't want to leave it. I know we've had it hanging out here for a month, so I wanted to get it on the table for discussion. But
So Commissioner Jackson, the change was to 1,500 square feet. Is there a number? Is there a number that you feel comfortable with if we were going to actually keep it the way it is with these changes and just reduce it down to 1,400, 1,200? Keep it as it was?
I think 1,000 is honestly is too much.
Currently,
it's 1,000.
It's currently 1,000, and I think that's a little too high for the intent of an accessory dwelling unit.
I definitely don't want it to go up.
Yeah, it's not. Accessory dwelling units are not intended to be long-term living solutions. In And that's my opinion. I'll preface that,
Well,
that's my opinion.
I think if
They're-
you look in, this is a hot topic across the country.
Oh, absolutely.
And finding affordable places for people to live is a big deal. And
So I guess there's no
But
way.
you run into a lot of issues that are happening in cities across America where they're subdividing their single-family home. You know, they've got an entrance into the basements, and walkout basements. So now that's an apartment that they're renting out to somebody. They're living upstairs. Some of it sometimes is out of necessity, and sometimes it's not. It's just a way to generate income. I stayed in an Airbnb in Washington, D.C., and the property owner, that's their only source of income is renting out Airbnb. I guess smart on them, you know, to that's their only job is renting out their first floor apartment inside their brownstone. But it is a hot topic. There's a lot of people that are worked up about it. It does cause issues, especially in municipalities, with parking and so forth. And anyway, I just want to make sure that we do something that's good, that takes care of the people that need to use it. There's clarity with it, that it's not just a blatant circumvention of zoning regulations by building secondary structures. Obviously, you know, that it's going to cause issue down the road for somebody that, you know, mom and dad die and kids inherit 2 homes on one property and they got to try to sell it. That's going to be an issue that they're going to have to contend with. So what can we do to try to hit every one of those topics and get something that works for the majority of people?
I guess, and I hear what Commissioner Jackson's saying, but is there any way to know what kind of situations people get in if they're spending too much money and they do have, we'll say, a $250,000, $300,000 home. Now they're building an accessory home, and with the new draft, it could be 1,500 square feet. You could probably spend $250,000, $300,000 to build a 1,500 to 1,800 square foot, but we're saying 1,500 right here. I wonder, has anybody run into how would we find out over the years that we've been doing this, what kind of situations do people get in when they decide they want to sell their property, the first home, but they've now got 2 homes on that same 5-acre tract.
You just have to sell them together.
They have to sell them together.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm wondering how happy they are if they're selling $500,000 worth of homes or $600,000 worth of homes on a 5-acre tract. I'm not sure if they're going to. You have to find, I guess, a perfect buyer that would need.
I think those buyers are more common than they used to be.
Yeah.
The other thing is,
And maybe they're okay. Maybe everybody's okay doing it. I just want to protect them
the
too.
wherewithal to acquire that kind of income to be able to do it in the first place. I would hope they're smart enough to make that decision for themselves.
Yeah.
And if they take a loss or don't get full value as a result, I think most of them understand that going in.
Especially based on circumstance, because usually the secondaries
They're getting
or
value
something
by,
they're getting a value from.
It saves on a nursing home expense. You know, over time, they may come out ahead if you look at that in the equation. So people have different reasons.
So Commissioner Jackson, so 1,000 is what we have today. You think that's still too much?
I think it's a little high, just based off
So what
my research of accessory dwelling units, because they typically will end up being mostly common in municipalities. They're usually taking advantage of something on that property that gives them that flexibility, whether it be a loft over a garage or, you know, a small section on a large lot that you know, might be a pool house where one of their own kids live in. You know, I mean, it's just, I don't know. I guess I go back to the intent of lot sizes. What's the real reason we have lot sizes? Is it septic tanks and wells? If it is, then
It's
why
not
would we
directly
contract?
connected to that, no.
Okay.
That's kind of a recommended size.
Yeah.
If it's a office use or something like that, the lot's going to be much smaller than 3 acres. So I think it simplifies things as far as being able to subdivide the land in a consistent way. But certainly 3 acres is more than enough room to support multiple septic systems.
And we have several areas that are still inside the county that are on those kind of lot sizes.
Oh, yeah.
So
There's really old lots that have been around for a long time. And improvements in the technology for these septic systems, they cost a little more, but they can do the job on a smaller footprint.
So, Commissioner Jackson, would you feel more comfortable with 750 square feet, somewhere around that range, a little over, a little under? I mean, what's the if we're going to change the number, what is something that is your comfort level based on how you feel about conditional use permits?
Well, definitely under 1,000. I think 750, 800 square feet. But I'm looking at traditional accessory dwelling units. They're apartment sized. They're not home sized. I don't know. I'll continue to do some research.
Okay. Well, let me ask, hey, Ms. Miranda, so how many years have you been on planning and zoning?
11.
11 years, okay. So you've seen a lot. You've seen a lot of cases come and go. And if we took it down to 750 square feet, and that's what we go by, how would that affect? I mean, knowing what I've only been on the board for 2 years, but you've got all that vast experience. Would most of the people say that's not enough for what they're looking for today?
As far as the P&Z board, I don't know. I mean, the big question is, at that point, if that was the regulation, would folks even apply? And I think that would be the first stop. But then once it gets to P&Z, for the most part, the board, our job is to interpret and make sure that our approvals and recommendations for approvals align with the approved regulations. There's not too many times personal opinions get brought in there. And I think most of the board knows too that there's always a chance, you might have someone come in and it might make a lot of sense to you. They have a sick parent or something they need to take care of. That might not actually be the truth. That might not be why they're doing it.
Say it isn't so.
But it's not our job to check,
Yeah.
and it's not our job to police that. So, again, I think as far as what's appropriate, I kind of defer to planning and development staff and, of course, the commission. Being on the board, our job is just to make sure that what people are applying for meets those regulations.
How many ADUs do you think that we have in the county that fall within the regulations as written?
I looked and identified about 105 that have taken place over the last 15 years, and probably more than that.
So about 105 have fallen within the regulation of the 1,000 square foot.
At least.
And then we've got
There's
the 9 that have wanted bigger,
Yes.
which is probably going to become a bigger request in the future, I would bet.
I don't have any reason
9 over the
to
past
believe
several
that.
years, but over half of them have been within the last 2, so the trend seems to be it's being requested more frequently.
So that's like 80 here for both combined. That's not very many
Yeah.
through the county. So it's not something, and that's 15 years worth of statistics. So it's not, even the smaller size are not doing a ton. I mean,
Yeah.
And it's not uncommon, people will come in with 1,100 in their plans.
Right.
Where they know, and we help them whittle it down. to 1,000 to where it's a non-issue.
Yeah.
I think making it smaller makes that would lead to more of these questions coming to the Board of Adjustment, which seems like that's kind of the opposite direction.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. I mean, it's good, it's helpful to know the number that we believe to be current, just using the past 15 years.
If you think about 1,000 square foot, I mean, you're talking about pretty much a 2-bedroom home. I mean, it'd be really hard to get a 322 in a 1,000 square foot. So if you're talking about taking care of one person, or even a possibility if you have an older couple or whatever, maybe somebody has to stay there, you have that extra bedroom, you know, so to me that feels like about the right spot, based on what you would think that use would be. It's rare that somebody's going to move in there and have 3 kids in a 2-bedroom home or something, you know, where you're talking about the amount of use for septic and things. So I felt like that number kind of falls kind of right in there.
I agree with both points. I still think it's on the large size for the use, as I see.
Get that portion, yeah.
But on the same token, you lower it, you may have the requests for conditional uses to go up. You know.
And these people are still getting permits to build whatever they're building, so they're still regulating.
We hope
the things supposed to until it comes around there, but that's still in place for it. So it's not just people just randomly throwing up a building without hopefully going through the right steps. Majority of the time.
We catch it eventually.
Yeah, it's going to get seen through the GIS mapping or whatever. I don't have any more.
Yeah, I will continue to work on this, and we'll just try to put it back on the schedule soon. It may end up staying where it's at, but I'll work on it.
It looks like about 90% of the people over this 15-year period have been okay with 1,000, or they wouldn't have, you know. So we're not talking about a large percentage of wanting to do more than 1,000, but if you think that we need to do less, then we'll need to look at that. The good news is now we have our in-house county attorney that can help research all this out, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And so, but I think these discussions are important. I myself, just my own personal opinion, I understand exactly what Commissioner Jackson is talking about. I don't want somebody getting stuck with two expensive pieces of property on one piece of land, and they lose their shirt when they're trying to sell it. On the other hand, I think that hopefully most people are doing this with the right intention of having someone else that needs a smaller area but needs to be closer to someone that can take care of them. So I'm okay with 1,000 square feet like it was. I think we were just, you know, when you have somebody that's requesting, and I think there was a good reason why they requested 2,900, because they were tearing down the other one, and I think
building a traditional home.
Yeah, and I think we understood that, you know. Then we had a 2,000, we had an 1,800, 1,900, 1,500, 1,500, 1,650, 1,300. I mean, you know, we had some, but that's only 9 cases in 15 years that was over the 1,000. I'm pretty comfortable with 1,000, but I'm also comfortable with us just continuing to study and doing our due diligence and making sure that we do the right thing for the county. Sir, I don't mean to step on toes, but are you here for this discussion?
No.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, if you are here for this plain zoning discussion, then I wanted to make sure I got your input. But otherwise, we'll be available to talk to you as soon as this is over. But I just wanted you to have an opportunity to...
I did have one question.
Okay.
Have we gone from 3 acres to 5 acres the last few years? We wanted to sell property.
The short answer is no, we haven't made a change recently. It depends upon the zoning of the property that we would be talking about. If it's zone A1 agricultural, the minimum lot size would be 5 acres, but for any other zoning district, it's 3.
Still same. Okay.
All right, very good. If there's no other comments or discussions, I think that was a good discussion. We will adjourn.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you.